it's Jessica Dybzinski. Thanks for being here today. I'm participating in a YouTube hop with a couple of other crafters, and we are celebrating Galentine's Day and documenting some pictures from our friends and family, our friends. And so I'm going to be scrapbooking this photo of two of my very best friends. I've got this little 6x6 paper pad from Jen Hadfield. It's called The Simple Life, and I've really been dying to use this new stamp set from close to my heart. It's called Floral Blooms, and I just got it recently, and I really wanted to make a layout with it. So I've pulled a couple of papers from that pad that I thought would work, and then I went through and swatched my close to my heart ink pads to match up some of the colors in that one piece. And I think I'm going to go with Smoothie, Flamingo, Sundance, Honey Butter, Fern, and Charcoal. I am inspired by this post on Pinterest, and I will leave it linked down below, but there wasn't any information on that post to say who was the original artist or, who the pinner was. So I would like to give credit, but I don't know who it is, but it is a beautiful layout that I'm going to scrap lift today. And so I have pulled, like I said, a couple of papers from that little 6x6 paper pad. I'm going to go ahead and trim that top strip off and cut them down to their true 6x6 size. And then really what I need is 3 triangles. And I had to laugh to myself when I started making this video for this YouTube hop, because I don't know what it is about making videos, but I seem to always do layouts with triangles. And if I'm not making a video, I don't really use triangles that often. So I don't know what it is about scrapbooking on camera that makes me feel like I need to use all the shapes, mostly triangles. So that just kind of made me giggle a little bit. You guys are probably wondering what my obsession is. I don't know. That's just kind of the way it happens to be. So now that I've got these cut down to their true 6x6 size, I've got the one that I cut directly in half because that will be the bottom corner of the square. And then these other two pattern papers I'm going to need just for half of each of them. So I'm lining up in my paper trimmer from corner to corner. I tried to get my blade started in the middle of the paper rather than running it right up to that very corner of the paper, because I find that sometimes it just scrunches the paper a little bit. And then as far as cutting this part of the triangle in half, I realized I could just measure how long that one side was and then just divide it in half and make sure that that top point was sure enough sitting right on the line of where my blade was going to run. And I think it was like 4 1/4 maybe, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I was just able to kind of look at that top corner and make it fit. I had to kind of play with the way I turned these triangles a few times. I don't know, there was something about those top two that kept getting me, and I was like, wait, which direction do they go? Oh yeah, they go like this. And so this one particular pattern piece with the pink polka dots, it doesn't really matter which way it goes, but on this floral pattern that I want to use as my top triangle, I have to think carefully about which way I'm cutting the paper in order to make sure that I have the paper in the correct direction. So if I just turn it to the right and then I get that top left corner as my top cut, I think that will work. I was just trying to make sure that I didn't cut it incorrectly, because there's only one sheet of each paper in that pad, and I really wanted to use this particular one. So like I said, I pull my blade into the inside of my cut first and then go from end to end just to avoid running it in. And then I will go ahead and cut this triangle in half as well. And then you will see me more than once as I'm putting this layout together be like, wait, which way did these go to match up? I don't know what it is. It's like a geometry problem of some sort, but I managed to get through it. So this is kind of the basic idea of what it's going to look like. And I'm going to do a little bit of treatment to all 3 of these triangles. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab my edge distressing tool, and I'm going to go ahead and rough up all 3 edges on all of the triangles. Then what I'm going to do is take them off camera, and I'm going to use my sewing machine to stitch around the inside edge of all 3 of them. And this was very exciting for me because I have been dying to try machine stitching on my scrapbooking layouts forever, and I've just been a little bit scared to try. And this today was the second time that I gave it an attempt. And let's just say I think I am officially obsessed, and I'm going to have to sew all of the things. So a little bit of advice that I found online first before I gave it a go was to really make sure that you avoid adhesive because it will gum up your machine needle, and that will kind of ruin all of the things. So I made sure to stitch those 3 triangles first, and that way I didn't even have to worry about any of the adhesive. All right, and then I'm also going to go ahead and mat my 4x4 photo here, first with a little bit of tissue paper, and then I'm going to pull out another piece from that stack and do a double mat for that. That way I just kind of have a better idea of exactly how big my picture is going to be, because I'm going to do a little bit of stenciling as well on this layout. Now on that pin on Pinterest that inspired me, there was some stenciling that came out from the top left and the bottom right corners of the photo, and then there were just all these beautiful florals and clusters that kind of burst out from behind the picture as well. So that's what I am attempting to recreate here. But I thought it would be easiest to maybe draw onto my base paper exactly where all of this stuff is going to go, and that way I don't have to keep moving all of my pieces of paper and my photo, and I can just kind of see a little visual of where that main square will be, and then also where my photo will be sitting. And I made sure to move my pencil marks in just a smidge so that way I don't even actually have to worry about erasing them. Everything should be covered by the papers and my picture. But as you can see, now I kind of have a better idea of exactly where to do my stenciling. And I was trying to decide between either Sundance or Honey Butter as far as my ink color goes here, but I went with Honey Butter. It's a little bit of a lighter yellow, and I just thought that that would work well. So I pulled out this little polka dot stencil. It's an older one from close to my heart that I have in my stash, and I'm just going to kind of do a real organic little bit of stenciling here. I'm not trying to hit all parts of that square and the stencil. I just want it to kind of fade out a little bit and not be too terribly exact. So a little stenciling on top, a little down below. I am tapping off my blending brush in the center there just to kind of get the heaviest of the ink off first. And it doesn't really matter that that's there on that part of the paper because it will be covered up later by my triangles. So like I said, just trying to kind of get a feel here of how this is looking. And if I need to add a little bit more stenciling, and then I decide that right there in that little section, I want to add just a little bit more. So I'll go ahead and line up all of the dots in my stencil and add just a little bit more yellow to the base page. Now I'm flipping over my Versamat because the back side has a nice foam surface to it, which is perfect for stamping. And I'm going to pull off a couple of leaf stamps here from that Floral Bloom stamp set. I'm going to use my Fern ink, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp directly to my paper. And when I am done, I absolutely love the way that this turned out, because this stamp right here, it has an open leaf image to it, and so you can see those yellow polka dots in the leaves, and it looks really cool in person. And so I was very happy with the way that this stamping turned out. So later you're going to see that I do bring in some die cuts, and I use those to kind of finish up my floral clusters, but I really love how some of the leaf images are stamped directly to the paper as well. So it was just kind of a fun way to add a little bit of dimension, some things that are directly on the page, and then some things that are die cuts and foam tape all over the place, of course. And yeah, so it was just a lot of fun to kind of build it up around this picture here. So like I said, I am participating in a YouTube hop with a couple of other crafters, and our theme is Galentine's Day. And so it doesn't have to be necessarily related to Valentine's Day, but just sort of a way to scrapbook your friends or maybe even your family. And so this here is a photo of me and two of my good friends, and it's actually from July, and we had gone out to dinner. We don't actually get an opportunity to get together very often anymore now that we are all moms of three and, teachers and have household duties and we're wives and just all of the things. I'm sure you guys can relate to how life gets a little crazy. So I'm just really excited to be scrapbooking this. All right, I've gone ahead and done all of my die cutting, as you can see here, and I'm going to go ahead and just lay everything out and kind of mass produce all of my stamped images, my die cuts. I'm not sure that I'm going to use everything at this point, but I thought, best to go ahead and cut it all at once and then stamp it all and have it ready to go so that way I can play with it as I'm creating my clusters and just kind of see what I want. So I am using those same colors that I showed you at the beginning. So I'll stamp a couple of different leaf type images here. And then, some of these flowers in this floral bloom set, they look like blobs when you cut them out with the die cut. And so what I have found is the easiest way with stamps and coordinating thin cuts of this nature that kind of have that blob sort of shape is I like to position my stamp on the thin cut first, on the die cut. That way I know that it's going to match exactly in that position. And then I use my block to pick up the stamp and I carefully set that die cut back down. I do have two of those cut out, so I'm going to make sure that I have them both facing in exactly the same direction. And then that way, as soon as I ink up my stamp, I can go ahead and very confidently set it right back down and know that I have everything lined up. And I don't have to, ink up the stamp and then twist and twist and twist and look to see where is it going to match. But I've already got that part figured out. And it's pretty easy to do with these stamps because they are clear and see-through, and that's one of the things I love about them. Okay, so using all of those different colors, gone ahead and prepared those die cut pieces, and I'm just going to go ahead and start building up my floral clusters here like what I saw in that Pinterest post. So I'm going to add a couple of these leaves, and I did use a couple of different greens. So I have fern is that bright green, and then I also used rosemary actually, which is that little sprig one. And later you're going to see that I changed that part up a little bit. But just kind of putting some flowers in and around and just kind of building up the clusters. I don't know about you guys, but it seems like whenever I'm at this stage of trying to put my embellishments down, I always like the way it looks. And then as soon as I start to move everything to actually glue it down to the page, I'm like, oh, I can never quite get it back down exactly the same way that I liked it the first time. But it'll basically get glued down in this way with a couple of minor changes. So I'm just going to finish kind of putting around to the right side as well. Maybe kind of think about the bottom, but really on that inspiration piece, there wasn't really much going on in the bottom part of the photo except for the stenciling and the stamping. So I'm going to keep my floral cluster to just the top and the both sides. And then I'll add a couple more pieces here. And then I'll also put a few things up in the top of the square there above that floral patterned paper. I had used my fancy, what is it called? The stitched brackets or fancy brackets thin cut and another piece of pattern paper from that same pad to cut out that little bracket. And then I cut it in half just so that a little bit of it would be peeking out. Later off camera, I will stamp the date of our little dinner date here up in that little bracket part. But I think I'm pretty much ready for adhering down. And then I think, you know what, I don't like that one little rosemary sprig there. It was on white paper, and actually my base page is kind of an off-white, and it just felt like really stark. So I decided to pull that out and then do that as a direct stamp to the base page as well. And then there are a couple of other little flowers, like that little bright yellow one that's over to the left. I ended up stamping that directly to the page as well, rather than using the die cut piece. But for the most part, I've got everything adhered down. My photo is up on some foam tape, and I am nearly finished. I did have a couple of corners here on my triangles that weren't quite stuck down as well as I wanted them to be, so I just snuck a little bit of glue underneath of them. Now, as far as the title, I really wish that I had this thin cut set. I have the one that says the love for and thank you, but there's another one from Close to My Heart that you could spell out best friends with. And I was like, oh, that would be so perfect for this layout. And I honestly thought about not finishing it and not putting a title on and ordering it and then adding it later. But I was like, no, the video must go on. So I did use a different die cut set here, a thin, what is it called? The Slim Alphas. And I just went ahead and I cut out of black cardstock the word besties. And then as far as adhering them down, I started with the I first because since I couldn't fit the whole thing onto the pattern paper and some of it was going to have to go off onto the white, I knew that I wanted the I to be there, and I just kind of worked off from either side of the letter I. Okay. Couple final little touches here. I've got a few little embellishments for my stash. These are called the black bursts. If they are still available, in fact, if anything that is available, I will leave linked in the description box down below, so that if you are interested in any of these things and you can still grab it, I will make sure that it will be easy for you to do so. So thank you so much for checking that out. And I'll just kind of put one more little one, tuck it here. I'm going to tuck it under the photo. No. Go. Oh, okay. It's going to go there. I lied. I know I'm going to put one underneath the photo. Yes, right there. And I think that is pretty much it. I'm going to call this layout done. I did stamp some journaling lines off camera, and I'll add my journaling later. But that is pretty much it. Like I said, I really love that stamping and the stenciling on there. And then, of course, the stitching from the sewing machine. I am obsessed, and I can't wait to do that on more layouts. It was really easy, actually, and a lot of fun. And I wish that I hadn't been so scared to try it for all of these years because it's amazing. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming by my channel today and watching. I hope that you have been inspired and that you have enjoyed. Please make sure that you check out the links for all the other ladies or crafters who are participating in this YouTube hop. I will leave their video links down in the description box down below. And as always, have a wonderful day and happy crafting. Bye, guys.